getting ready to start. And first of all, of course, thank you for being part of J.E.D.I program. This program is, of course, possible for with the collaboration of our Skagit County Chambers of Commerce and EDASC. The Mount Vernon Chamber of Commerce is proud to present, together with our partners, our monthly Justice, Equity, Diversity and Inclusion presentation, especially in this month as we celebrate National Hispanic Heritage Month. And we couldn't be more proud of this presentation and, of course, the speaker that we have for you this afternoon. My name is Sylvia Reed, and I am with the Mount Vernon Chamber of Commerce, and of course, all of us glad and proud to share this valuable information with our partners, with our community, and with our members. Thank you. Of course, this is possible thanks to the sponsorship and support of community-minded individuals and organizations in Skagit County. Thank you, HKP Architects and Community Action are sponsors for this presentation. HKP Architects focuses on civic buildings and spaces, educational facility planning and design, nonprofit and community-oriented projects, private homes, and work that lift people in their lives. Community Action, thank you for all the work that you do in the community. Community Action of Skagit County is a community-based private nonprofit organization and affiliated with any government agency. They serve in Skagit County and partner with a nationwide network of community action agencies established under the Economic Opportunity Act of 1964 to move local families and communities from poverty to prosperity. Today, we are very proud to present J.E.D.I monthly series and to welcome Dr. Ismael Vivanco. This presentation will take about 45 to 50 minutes, allowing plenty of time for our participants to present their questions and, of course, engage with the valuable information that Dr. Vivanco will be delivering today. Ismael Vivanco moved to the United States as a young child and worked as a migrant in the fields until the age of 16. These experiences taught him the value of hard work and more so the importance of education. After graduating from high school, he continued his education by attending different colleges and universities, starting with Skagit Valley College. He then received his Bachelor of Arts degree in Spanish from Western Washington University, Master's degree in Education, and teacher certification from Heritage University. Dr. Vivanco has studied abroad in Mexico and at the University of Salamanca in Spain. He received his superintendent credentials and doctorate of education from Washington State University. After spending 27 plus years working for the North Central ESD, Antioch, Palisades, and Orondo school districts, he now serves as the superintendent for Mount Vernon School District. Dr. Vivanco is very proud of his Mexican heritage and is committed to always supporting and giving back to the community. Welcome to our J.E.D.I presentation, Dr. Vivanco. Bienvenido.
Thank you very much. Gracias. Good afternoon, everyone. How's it going? Thumbs up? Pretty good? Excellent. So I have two screens, so I put my presentation in front of me, so it looks like I know what I'm talking about. And on the right, I have you guys. So, and so I'll try to keep an eye on the chat as we have conversations as well. So, Sylvia, I'll go ahead and get started and share my screen. Excellent. All right. Well, let's see here. I believe I need to go right here. And let's see. Share. And just a quick thumbs up if you can see my PowerPoint. See it? Excellent. Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. And again, honored to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to share, around the conversation. Again, the title of my presentation is Creating a Sense of Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity. And if obviously it's right in line with these kinds of presentations about justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So I'd like to start by, again, a little bit of, about me. I guess my background, they've shared a little bit of what Sylvia shared, and I'll just add a little bit more, but not too much, as I want to focus on the presentation. So, by the way, I like the Bitmoji version of me instead of the other one. So, just to keep that in mind. So, about me and my family. So, I was born in Mexico City, like Sylvia may alluded to, and I am a Skagit native. I grew up in the Skagit Valley. I was 2 years old when we moved north from Mexico City to Oregon, and then my father heard there were strawberries as big as apples in the Skagit Valley, and so we moved here in the Skagit Valley, and we were fortunate that we stayed in the Skagit Valley. So I am a Burlington Edison High School grad. There's conflict because I'm working here in Mount Vernon with that. As a matter of fact, this next Friday will be a challenge because I'm going to the Burlington Edison against Mount Vernon game. So we'll see how that goes for us. So pray for me, please, as I'm there. My beautiful wife Matilda is there. She's a kindergarten teacher. She actually just started working this year in Burlington Edison School District, and yeah, it's been a challenge, as you know, not with COVID, just the new system and everything going on. With little ones, it's always a new dynamic. And our son Kim, he's a student at Bellevue College, so he's still working part-time while he's doing college remotely. So again, just the early years, like I shared, pay no attention to the dark spot here. I swear it was that way when I put them on, okay, when I was a little kid. But there's a picture of me when I was in Mexico City. And again, a little bit of the rationale of why we moved. Again, this is the quick version of when I've shared this in the past, that this is where we lived growing up. And for me, it was only my 2 years in Mexico City, but it was this white and greenish concrete structure. This other stuff belonged to somebody else. So due to that, my parents chose to look for economic, create better conditions for our quality of life. Couple that with the next picture that I have here. This is our family passport. This is dad, mom, my 5 brothers and sisters. And he wasn't, smiling just because we're nervous, but I think I shared this in the past that about 8 months before this picture was taken, he was assaulted. So they left him for dead. And so couple that with our conditions, it prompted my dad to look for different opportunities for our family. So that's why we moved north. So here's the first interaction activity. You got to figure out which one is the cutest kid. Is it kid number 1, kid number 2, or kid number 3? And please throw that in the chat. Let me know which one is the cutest little guy. And you guys should have access to the chat, correct? And I'm going to take a peek here to some answers. I see some 1s. I see a 3, saying, hoping it's you. Sorry, so sad. Not 3. Boy, a lot of 2s there. I have to say that it's the cutest one is whatever you think. I think it's number 1 because that's me. So number 1 is me, and these are number 2 is my oldest brother Arturo, which some of you might know on here, and my brother Trino. So again, it's our family passport picture as we were, growing up in the Mexico cities. This is an actual picture of our passport that they stamped. So, all right, moving on here, a couple of things to share. So again, just a little bit more about my education, like Silvia shared. I did go to Skagit Valley College, then Western Heritage University, and then Washington State University. So I was fortunate to continue my education and finish my doctorate. A couple of things. I remember dad and mom there taking a picture. Dad says, "Mijo, no sé qué hiciste, pero felicidades." He goes, "Son, I don't know what you did, but congratulations. I hear it's a big deal." And that being said, I always share that the best education, even though I've gotten all this stuff, the best education I've ever received was my parents, integrity, work ethic, all those things that go along with learning. Bright doesn't mean right. I mean, there's a lot more to education than just the formal education. It's the education that you learn from your parents about how you communicate people, how you show respect, etc. So anyway, just, excited and fortunate that I had the opportunity to continue my education that got me to where I am today. Speaking of where we are today, that's really been my focus. And when I took this job a year ago, is really to create a sense of belonging. And so I'm going to share our journey so far to create a sense of belonging in our school. And again, I want to open it up to questions as we move forward. So first of all, I'd like to say that it really starts with our commitment to our students and our community. So our goal is 100% of our students will graduate with the knowledge and skills needed to be successful in post-secondary education, careers, and life. And if you notice, again, we're not expecting or understanding that all our kids go to college, but we just want to prepare them for whatever comes their way after high school. That being said, we want to make sure that we are focused, because our board did not feel right saying, well, how about only 95% of our goal? No, it's 100%, and really rely on people like you, our business leaders and communities, to help support our efforts to get kids to 100% graduation. And all of this really starts with our vision. So our vision in Mount Vernon School District is to graduate inspired and critical thinkers who embrace diversity and are committed to the betterment of their own lives and the lives of others. So again, it really is about that. So I really appreciate that even in our specific vision, we talk about diversity, we talk about improving the lives of oneself and others, because it's got to start with someone. And that's really part of our why. So our why and I'm not sure if maybe a quick thumbs up if you've heard of Michael Jr. He's a comedian. And he has a quick video I'm going to share with you. So hopefully this will work. And I just really love this video. It's a oldie but a goodie, I guess. But I just love how it really explains the difference between what we do and why we do things. So it's about a 3-minute video. And so again, thumbs up if you're able to see
One of the great challenges in this world
the commercial.
is knowing enough about a subject
Let me keep going here.
to think you're right.
I saw some people have seen this, but again, it's important about knowing your why. So I'm going to let this load here.
Oh, a lot of people, when they think of the phrase, how do I know?
Can you hear it okay? Thumbs up.
What behind it? How do I know what I'm supposed to do? The question that you really should ask is, how do I know why I'm here? Because when you know your why, your what becomes more clear and more impactful. If you know, like for instance, people know that I do comedy, but that's what I do. My why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. So I can do comedy, I can write books, I can be in a movie, because all of it is motivated by my why. In fact, I have a new web series out called Michael Jr. Break Time. We probably just did the 6th episode. It's on YouTube. So every single Wednesday at 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode on YouTube of Michael Jr. Break Time. What it is it's me. I travel around the country and I do stand-up comedy, in case you know. And in the middle of my comedy set sometime, I'll stop and just talk to my audience. And we've been filming this, and it's pretty cool. So we're in Winston-Salem. I'm gonna show you a clip from Winston-Salem. And I'm just talking to this guy in the audience, and he tells me that he's a musical instructor at a school. So I was like, all right, you're a musical instructor, can you sing? Let me hear you sing a song. So this is what happened at the last episode of Michael Jr.'s Break Time. Check it. So you're a musical director. Cool. Yes, sir. All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Wow, that bro could sing. You know what I'm saying? All right. Now, once you give me the version, it's if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick. You know what version I'm talking about, to see if that exists. Let me see what you got. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like Okay. Here's what I want you to catch. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what becomes more impactful because you're walking towards or in your purpose.
All right. So again, thumbs up if you've enjoyed that or have seen it before. I thought it was a pretty cool example of our why. So again, our why, as we continue, and obviously we have a couple, but one I just wanted to share with you as an example here, is that, you know, I keep sharing this with our staff and all staff, that we're a Bulldog family who creates a culture of belonging and inclusion through our equity work and our MTSS work. MTSS is a multi-tiered systems of support. And that's kind of what helps get to our equity work. And so as we continue to move forward, those are the two wheels on our bus that helps us get towards 100% graduation. And I'll share more a little bit later about the whole concept of belonging. And it's not just about belonging, but it's about belonging without having to give up who you are. So again, more to come on that here in a moment. So, all right. So again, a lot of this, we've seen this, you know, we talk about equality, you know, we talk about equity, and we talk about really social justice. You know, what do we mean by that? And the very familiar graphic that you've all have seen, you know, equality. Yeah, equality is that we give every person a crate so they can see the game. But if you see on the front one on the right, it's hard to see the game because you're vertically challenged. Let's just say that. And so, you know, the other analogy you maybe have heard is, hey, we're gonna give everybody a size 10 pair of shoes. Well, that's good, but if you wear a size 7, it's not gonna fit and do you any good. So equity is really giving each person the pair of shoes that they need, or in this case, it's you know, equity is giving each student the number of crates they need to be able to see the game. And really the furthest one is what we're working on now. It's called universal design for learning, and that's the whole justice piece, or social justice. Let's just get rid of that fence and see where people have equitable access to watch the game. So more to come on that as we discuss forward. So again, when we talk about that, coincidentally, by the way, I was at a training this morning, so I added this slide. So when we talk about a universal design for learning, it resonated with me, and I think ties into what we're talking about here, especially in the school setting. When we take a closer look at equity, one thing is that we want to talk about equitable access to inclusive classrooms with grade level peers. So we really want to make sure that we are providing that access for all our students. And we also want to provide equal opportunities to learn aligned to grade level standards. So when we talk about equal opportunities, is that it's not just about providing opportunities, but we want to make sure that we provide the resources each child needs to be successful with those opportunities. So again, that goes to the next one, expectations. So we need to have these expectations where students can be successful when provided with the appropriate support. So again, it doesn't just mean, hey, well, there's the geometry class. Now let's he or she now has equal access. But you know what if that kid's a second language learner? And what if that kid took honors classes and classes beyond geometry from their native country? So what is it that we can do to provide multiple supports? Coincidentally, we have a dual language geometry course at our high school. So that's an example of a maybe closer move towards a universal design for learning. Because really, we're trying to teach if the kid knows geometry, not if they know English. So that's the example of that. And again, the last one that really resonated with me and why I put this a slide here is that we want to have equitable feelings of belonging and hope. And so more to come on that as we move forward. So the next item here is, again, when we talk about equity and social justice, some of the things that help define it for me is that we want to, again, provide each child with resources they need to be successful. A couple of things that we've done is we've actually hired a director of equity and inclusion. It just speaks to me to the volume and the commitment that the board has, where they gave me the direction when I was hired to really move our equity and social justice work forward. Well, as a superintendent in a school district this size, it's hard for me to specifically do the legwork for that. And so for them to give me the green light to hire a director of equity and inclusion speaks volumes to our commitment to move this work forward. So it's been great to have David Rodriguez on board, who's our Director of Equity Inclusion. We also have building equity leads and equity lead facilitators. That means in every building we have these facilitators and equity facilitators. Of the the 9 buildings, 3 of those 9 are like the subcommittee or the equity facilitators that guide this work forward. So they help support David and pushing out this work out to our schools as we talk about equity. And again, it's important that we tie this so it's not anything different. We're just talking about how this weaves in to everything that we're doing. So we talk about MTSS, equity, universal design. We're really trying to do an analogy that when we weave all these concepts together, it just strengthens our goal towards 100% graduation. An example is, again, we have a high school level course called Identity, Power, and Action that it has also ties into that that work of how we try to provide things more equitable and more socially just for our kids. And really what's nice about that course, it really provides a safe space for kids to learn how to have discourse around this issue. Because again, as you know, when you talk about race, it could be a contentious issue. And I remember someone asked one time, well, when is it appropriate to talk about race? Well, and I can't remember exactly how they said, but they said, if a child is young enough to be affected by it, then they're old enough to talk about it, if that makes sense. So if it's a kindergartner, they might not know when they're being talked about because of the color of their skin. But if they're understanding, then it's obviously it's got to be age and grade appropriate when we have conversations. So again, this course does that for our students. Lastly, we provide ongoing professional development, which I'll get to here in a minute. But these are some examples of how we move our work forward to provide a culture of belonging through dignity as we move our work here in the district forward. So again, a couple of last things here. Again, resources that we have created. We have our strategic plan that talks to our racial equity policy that we put in place. In the spring of 2020, our board adopted a racial equity policy. And bottom line, one example of that is 60% of our student population in the district are Latino. But we don't have 60% of them involved in college and high school courses, in advanced placement courses and highly capable courses. So we have some work to do to get towards that goal. So a lot more I can discuss on that, but that's an example of why we're really moving forward with our racial equity policy. In order to have a policy, you should have a plan, and we do have a racial equity plan. And part of it is, for example, our hiring practices. A lot of times we'll hire people just because we're comfortable with them. But sometimes we have to look at what makes sense, and who is the right person that will help move this work forward, or who's the right person that really reflects the population of the kids that we have in our school. So we're continuing to look at all these factors as we continue our work. And again, one of the resources we have is a prioritization tool that helps guide our work. And we have a racial equity lens tool. And really what that means is there's some guiding questions that when we're going to hire someone, a question we're going to ask ourselves, how does this affect our marginalized populations, as one example. So again, a lot of work that we're doing towards our racial equity work to help provide a more equitable environment for our kids. So with that, a time for a little interaction. Just in general, just to kind of get your thoughts in the chat, think of one of these metaphors: a bridge, a heart, a plant, or a balance scale. Pick one of those, and in the chat, just with a few words, 8 to 15, explain your choice in the chat. So, which metaphor describes equity in your environment? So go ahead and chat away. So so I'll give you one example. For me, I'll say the heart. So for me, equity in my environment is the heart, because equity is at the heart of everything that we do. Bridges, because it bridges our diverse thinking, et cetera. So that's kind of the intent. So thank you for that question. I like the idea of the plant. The bridge, we're kind of working on the bridge, both obvious and lesser known. See a lot of plant analogies because we're growing. Another 20, 30 seconds to throw in anything there. Ooh, I like that heart. Diversity keeps us alive here. Excellent. Very good. All right. Well, thanks for sharing, and feel free to keep sharing as you're in there, and I'll continue to the next slide as it ties into this. So really, some of the examples that I'd like to share is when we talk about diversity or equity, we need to look at a transformative approach to equity. And so what I mean by that is, when we talk about diversity, it's great. We talk about celebrating diversity, we talk about heroes, holidays, food, music, etc. And that's wonderful to celebrate diversity. If we focus just on food and music in our school setting, then we're just going to get a lot of kids that like to eat and dance. So, which is fine, but we really need to look at a more transformative approach to equity. Excuse me. So by doing that, we just need to go beyond celebrating diversity. We need to do a more transformative approach. And that's where we talk about digging deeper into what we do. So as we continue to move forward, that's why we are really focusing on this book, Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity. And actually, I was going to show it to you on video, but you see it there. And again, what have we done so far with this book? Well, one of my goals is to continue to weave this throughout our organization. So for example, some things that we've done is we've done a book study with our DLT. That's our district leadership team. And so we actually did a book study around this book. And then we also did a book study with our board. And so I did a book study with our board to have conversations around this book. And I'm going to be sharing some highlights about this book here in a little bit. So I'll keep moving here. Our director of equity is going to be doing book study with his equity leads and facilitators. And we've also provided a copy of this to all our principals and assistant principals. That way they're aware of the conversations equity leads are having with their staff as we continue to weave this into our organization. And so, some takeaways I'll be sharing here in a little bit. So again, so far, just really quick in the chat, I've shared a little bit of information of some of the things that we're doing so far. So maybe in the chat, again, just for about a minute, go ahead and please share in the chat, maybe an aha, a takeaway, or a wondering you might have regarding what I've shared so far. Nikki, thank you. I like the way you described that about including both leadership, which is the operations part of it, and the board with a vision. Great way of explaining that. Yeah, the book title, I'll put that in the chat here. Awesome. Yeah, good question about why other titles and why this one, because it came across my desk. Actually, there's a lot of other great books. I have another one here, if I can find it really quick. This is from a John Newbery Award winner. Sorry, I know I'm on Zoom, but it's called Stamped. and it's about racism, anti-racism in you. And this is part of some of the text that we use. There's a lot of great books, but this one happened to come across my desk, and we were part of a state leadership training around this book, and it just really resonated with me. And so I think people, let's see, I think were you guys able to get the title of the book? Did I send that? Yeah, okay, very good. All right, well, we'll keep going because I have a few more things I want to share, and then keep chatting here. So part of the highlights from this book so far for me, one of the things that they talk about is they use a parallel with Maslow's basic needs. And really they talk about the stair step to fulfilling potential. As you know, Maslow's basic needs is physiological safety, belonging, achievement, actualization. Well, in a nutshell, a lot of times we forget about belonging because you can't see it. So we get to right to achievement after we feel like our needs have been met for physiological needs and safety needs. Then, hey, let's get to school and let's achieve. But bottom line is how can we or how should we expect kids to achieve if they don't feel like they belong, and or staff for that matter. So that's really in a nutshell what I like about that visual right here, is that we really need to focus on that belonging to make sure it's a fluid stair step as we move forward. A couple other things here. I'll keep going. I've done this already. The other thing that really resonates with me is this. They talk about 4 diverse environments, and so I'm going to break these down here shortly. That they talk about, an integrated environment, an included environment, an excluded, and a segregated. So the first one again is, if you have an excluded environment, that's where the conditional belonging is low, and access to resources is low. So if you look at the gray box, that's the mainstream environment, and everybody's excluded. So really belonging, you're being outside of the community, so that's hard to really feel like you belong if you're being excluded. The next one is a segregated. This is if you think back in the 40s and 50s, separate but equal, which didn't work because things were not equal. But that's being of a separate community. So again, access is low because things were not equal. But the unconditional belonging was probably high because you were with people that shared your same life experiences. And then you get to an integrated environment, is where a lot of us are, and frankly, we're here and we're trying to change that as we continue to move forward. So you have high access, but really the conditional belonging is still low. And that's because you're being in a community, and that's good, but it's not being of a community. When you're of a community, that means you have high access and you have unconditional belonging. That means you don't have to give up who you are to belong. And so that's really what our goal is as we talk about belonging through a culture of dignity for us. And again, and really quick in the chat, maybe, I know that was quick and I apologize for that, but just the idea, and I'll go back to this the first one, what an aha or wondering you have about this 4 diverse environments. So go ahead and throw in the chat a couple takeaways that you might have gotten from that quick information. That's for the book title again. So yeah, being of the community versus being in. Yeah, that for me kind of spoke volumes of that. So okay, I'll keep going because I know I have a few more slides, and English was my second language, and so as soon as I learned to speak it, I haven't been able to stop talking. So I'll keep going here. All right, so going back to the slides here. Thanks for your input on there regarding your comments. So moving right along here. So this is kind of one of the last pieces here. When we talk about belonging through a culture of dignity, again, the horticultural analogy, again, it's a part of the book that it really resonated with me. And using this horticulture analogy, so inclusion is the precious flower we are trying to cultivate. So for us, inclusion is that flower, that student. And belonging is the root system that sustains the plant. So the belonging is that plant. But what's hard about it is that it remains unseen and often underappreciated. So it's so important that we remember that what really makes the plant grow is the root, right? And what really makes the root healthy and sustainable is what? The soil, right? So the analogy we use here is that our staff are the soil. So the organizational culture of a school is the soil out of which the plant must grow. So for us, as we continue to move forward, what's important is to grow your plant, you must first know your soil. If you ask any farmer, they're going to tell you that. They're going to tell you, you got to know what kind of soil you're working with and what it is, how it works, the minerals involved, etc. And then how to adjust and enrich the soil to nourish it. So, we've looked at our staff and what is it that they need to understand our work as we move this work forward. So in short, we must attend to the soil. So for us as an organization, we're providing that professional development, the supports that our staff need. So that way they are successful, which in turn will make our students successful. So we want to create a culture belonging for our staff too. For example, we have, we don't quite have 60% of, in this case, Latinx staff, but we're working in that direction with our hiring practices. And it doesn't mean that we all have to be obviously Latinx either, but it does help to have someone that looks like you. That being said, what's really important for me is that people really understand the customers we have in our school now. And when 60% are Latinx, we need to understand their background, where they come from, et cetera. And so that's what we're trying to do with our professional development. So as we move forward, going back to this, we're always attending to that soil of providing the supports our staff need to really understand the new kids that exist in our school. So again, feel free to throw in the chat again, any takeaways or wonderings about that soil analogy. If we were in person, I would definitely do more of a talk to an elbow partner. But again, we're being flexible with what we have. Yeah, good question. How have hiring practices adjusted to boost a more diverse teacher population? So I remember a year ago when we do a report of how many teachers we hired, I just did a visual representation. I noticed that we had hired, I believe it was 38 new staff, and I was just going by very superficial by the color of their skin. And in that case, 13 of the staff were of color. And I always hate saying that because we're all of color. We all have our color. It doesn't matter if you're white, purple, or pink, right? But when we use that term, it's obviously like, for example, a dark skin staff. So really, that was like 36%, which was pretty good because the average hiring practices is like 10 to 15%. And so I was pleasantly surprised last year. So as we continue to move forward through attrition, affinity, we're always trying to find, first and foremost, hire the right person for the job. Not just because you're dark skin or female or that, we're not going to hire because of that. We got to make sure we have the right person for the job. What we need to do is cast a wider net. So make sure we get the right people in the application pool that gives us those opportunities. So anyway, that's one thing that we continue to improve as to what makes sense as we move forward. For example, in our district leadership team, I want to make sure we have diverse representation and with our female administrators as well. So lots to continue to do as we continue to move that work. Has there been opposition to the focus on diversity and equity? Maybe. I know that sometimes we have those conversations, and I always say, look, we need everybody. I remember there was a sign to say, white people, we need you. Yeah, we need everybody. And again, that's why I said earlier, I don't care where you come from. We just want to make sure that we have a deep understanding of the kids that exist in our classroom today. So again, if you're white, purple, pink, as long as you understand, our mission is to continue to understand the needs of our customers that exist in our classrooms today. Again, as we move forward, when an opportunity comes, we look at that. So not really, I think people understand that we need to continue to have a little bit more representation. Again, right now, 60% of our population is Latinx, but I think overall, I really don't have the number, but I think only maybe 10% of our district is of color. So more to come on that. All right, I think I'm gonna keep moving because we're getting close to finishing up here. So I received a private chat from someone just started talking about that Maria Day. If those of you who don't know, she wanted to be here. And she just wanted to make sure it was awesome to share that she's, and that she's obviously proud of our family because we happen to know her. So coincidentally, in this slide, and I've shared this in the past, this is a picture of 1974, 76, 1975, talking about computers aiding teaching migrant students. So this is a picture of a parent with 3 of her kids, 2 are nephews, and another one is a nephew. This is Eva Vizcaya. This is a parent from the Mount Vernon area who was like a home visitor. This is Mrs. Calderon, who was, I think, a para-educator. This is another cousin of mine who was, I believe, having a picture here. And this is Maria Day, Astrid. So email me. I'm happy to share this picture with you. I share this because this happens to be my mom. And some of these, so my point is, we were a migrant family. And guess what? 3 of these students here got a master's degree and are teachers. Another one works for the county. Another one also works for the schools. One because of mental surgery she had because of a tumor, she's still with us today. She's alive and healthy, but wasn't able to go to school. But who would have thought back then that we would have 3 teachers in this picture? So again, these are our future, and just like we say in our schools, we have these kids, and so we want to continue to cheer and support our kids. So I want to close with one of the things that I shared with all staff here is that we really want to cheer on and support our students, staff, parents, and each other, because cheering does work. So I'm going to again see if my YouTube link works here, because again, going back to that picture, we just don't know who we have in our classrooms. Who knows? You might have a new superintendent, or a new superintendent going into your business that are going there every day. So anyway, I want to close with this other cool little YouTube video that I shared that talks about the importance of cheering, and cheering does work. So humor me here for about 30 seconds. Thumbs up if you can see the video. Awesome, here we go.
Oh, you're not just gonna walk away and give up. Stop it. You can get that. That's yours. Nobody else. Get in there. Give it some heat. Give it some heat. Get it some heat. Let it go. You got it. You go in there. And you get it. You get it. You get it. That's the one right there. You get it. Yes. All right. Yeah, babe.
Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that one. That's reminds me that cheering does work. When we support our kids, it really does help with that. So I always kind of share with staff, what gets rewarded gets repeated. We're always out there looking for ways to really make sure that everybody feels like they belong as we continue to create a culture of belonging here in our schools. So lastly, we all play a key role in the success of our students, including everybody on the screen. We're all in this together. We do appreciate all you do in improving the quality of life and those opportunities for our kids. And again, I'll just exit my stop sharing and see if there's any questions. So I think, again, thank you for the opportunity to share this. And I think I've released my Zoom powers and open to any questions. So please feel free to throw in the chat and or just on Zoom, unmute, sorry.
Ismael, can you hear me?
Yes, Jose, thank you. Go ahead.
So, I've had some other friends that have gone to school and graduated and have many degrees. The question is, do you feel like you belong?
That's a great question. A couple things. Yes and no, frankly. Yes, but what's interesting is I belong to an organization called WALAS. This is at the state level. It's called WALAS, which is Washington Association for Latino Administrators and Superintendents. Now, I asked myself, why does that exist in general? And really part of the reason that exists is maybe sometimes, it's not that I'm comfortable, but you put me in a dark room with whatever, I'm comfortable, but that's because of my confidence and all that. But sometimes you need to feel and have opportunities to be with people that share your same experiences. So that's what Wallace does. It helps with people. For example, I know when I was in North Central Washington, we talked about equity and getting more administrators. So I'd always joke with them because I said, come on, guys, I'm getting lonely here because we had 9 superintendents and 1 Latino male there. So that's kind of hard when I felt like, do I really belong here? So Jose, I hope that answers your question. That not that people were obviously mean, they were very collegial, supportive, but when we need to create these opportunities. And for example, here at Mount Vernon School District, we do have what we call affinity groups, because when you have a small group of people, again, it could be a small group of females that maybe we have to create conditions where they can talk to each other about maybe the shared experiences, good or bad, about whether they feel like they belong or not. So we do that here as a district with our populations. So to help that, again, not that the majority group is doing anything on purpose. Sometimes they are and sometimes they're not. So sorry, long answer to answer that question. So yes and no. But again, it's an ongoing effort to continue to make improvements and changes. Thank you, Jose. Other questions, comments?
I was just going to say thank you. What a great presentation. I wondered if you had any suggestions or advice for businesses that are trying to be more diverse and maybe closer to the beginning of that journey. I think one fear that many businesses say is we don't want to have a token individual. We want it to be, meaningful diversity. And so I didn't know if you had any advice on that point.
Absolutely. A couple of things, Nikki, that I can think of. One is, the token piece is always a challenge because you want to make efforts, but you really want to make it authentic. And that's why I always say, I'm not a Latino superintendent. I'm a superintendent who happens to be Latino. So that's one. One is also that you need to, you probably heard this before, nothing about me without me. So you need to invite those underrepresented populations to be a part of the group. Instead of trying to sell it to them, and maybe this is a great business analogy here, instead of selling this to them, I think I would suggest that you help them buy it. And so that's one thing I've shared with staff is how do we help them buy what we're trying to sell, I guess, frankly. So how do we really make it an authentic experience and to really have their voices heard? We need to continue to do that to really get parent input as we continue to get involvement. I heard recently, for example, the students, there are students, but they're the parents' children. So, because a lot of times we'll say, parents, you're a student. Well, no, it's not their student. It's our student. It's their child. So anyway, that was just an example I thought about that. How do we really make it authentic when we and really you have to be open and candid and create but kind in creating conditions to allow for these conversations to move forward. And to say, we're really, we're serious about this and here are the steps we're making. So for example, we've talked about the racial equity policy. We've talked about our racial equity action plan. We've hired a director of equity. So we've done a lot of things that shows that we are serious in moving this work forward. But again, it's not just our marginalized population or Latinx, it's everybody. It's everybody moving this work forward. Understanding that we need to learn and understand our new customers in our school and how do we make and create conditions for their success. Sorry for the long answer.
That's great, thank you.
Other question, it looks like we have about 3 or 4 minutes, Sylvia, for maybe any other long, and feel free to throw in the chat. And you can share them to me privately if you'd like as well.
I have a question, unless somebody else has another question. How is it possible, and if so, how can you do it? How can you have that sense of belonging without abandoning or neglecting your own identity?
Yeah, so great question. That's where we have to create a climate and culture where people do feel comfortable to be proud of who they are without, again, to belong without having to give up their identity. And part of that, for example, is just, it's okay to people to, I guess I think, for example, growing up, they called me Ismael, they called me Ismael, they called me Ish, and that's okay. I know who I am. But some people will take the time and say, well, how do you want to be called? And honestly, before maybe I felt uncomfortable for them to say Ismael because maybe it's a little bit difficult for them. But guess what? I had one of my bosses who let's just say he had the most opportunity and an opportunity for growth to learn Spanish, and he would say Ismael. It really wasn't that difficult. So he was vulnerable and comfortable to take that risk and to honor who I was with my name, for example. So yeah, how do we continue to create those conditions and just to be open? Again, I always say, whenever you're the majority, if you're a bunch of males with a few females, how do we really make sure that we're leaning in or bringing people in to help make sure that they're comfortable and really asking questions about, how do you want to be called? What is it that I can learn from you, et cetera. So. And this is a marathon, it's going to be a journey, but if we don't start somewhere, we'll never get there. There was one everyone having been a part of the graduating class of Burlington High School that included the first Hispanic to go through K-12. Yeah, thank you, Astrid. I appreciate the comments. Yeah, when I grew up in Burlington, I was one of the few, our family were to go through that. Other questions?
Has there been John asked this question, and I actually had the same question, so I'll ask it for both of us. Has there been opposition to the focus on the DEI work?
Not directly. I know that sometimes we get some comments, and again, as you know, we're in a sensitive climate right now due to COVID, masking issues, and you're going to have outliers on both sides. People to the extreme, both sides. Again, we always share that as a school, we're always trying to do what works best for the longest period of time, and that we need to have these conversations because guess what? The system that we've had in the past is simply not working. So we go back to that always and say, we wouldn't be doing this if 60% of our kids were in college and high school and AB classes. So we need to have these candid, courageous, but I always say kind conversations about that. So yeah, probably some outlier questions, but in general, I think people are seeing it in the news everywhere about systems of oppression. I mean, we have a Senate bill, if you're bored, you can read this, Senate Bill 5044 that talks about, systems of racism and how we need to change that. And this is our efforts, our equity work to move in that direction, some of the courses. So, it is, but we can't shy away, from that, and we need to kind of keep moving forward because it's the right thing to do for our kids, for our future population, so. Oh, thank you. Someone said, I keep thinking you're saying 60, but is it 16? That's my accent. Sorry, Beverly. No, 60. 60 of our school is Latinx. 60. So 6 out of 10 kids are Latinx. So when you have that high number, so we are on the West Coast, we are the highest minority school district. So when you look at that, yeah, we probably need to kind of continue to make efforts to create conditions where kids belong and feel comfortable. And what better way to do that? To have a geometry teacher that looks like them, a principal that looks like them, a paraeducator that looks like them, a nurse, a superintendent. So those things can't hurt but help. But again, we're not hiring people just because they look like them. They have to be the right person. And it goes back to what I said earlier. We got to throw a wider net to get those kinds of people in the pool. For example, when we're trying to hire for our public information officer, we waited. We had Selena, who some of you might know, but we just waited and tried to get the right people in the pool to look at that. But even then, we had people in the pool, but it just was not the right person to do the job as well. So a lot of work to be done there. Thank you, Beverly, for the question and clarification. All right, any last questions? And if you don't, I think, again, I'll pass it over to Sylvia. Again, just honored to be invited to be, give you my granito de arena. It's my grain of sand to contribute to these J.E.D.I presentations. If questions come up later, please reach out to myself or Sylvia. And again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vivanco, for taking the time, and of course, for the work that you do in our community, for our kids, and for the community. Every time that you invest on our future generations. We thank our sponsors also, J.E.D.I Architects and Community Action. Thank you for supporting the mission of this program, and our Skagit County Chambers of Commerce and the Economic Development Association. This partnership has been very valuable, and we continue to work toward building a better community. Thanks again, Dr. Vivanco. For those of you who would like to connect with the Chambers of Commerce or EDASC into maybe recommending some speakers, let us know. Keep us in mind. Our organizations, Chambers of Commerce and EDASC, we put an emphasis on listening to our community and serving your needs. So let us know, and thank you very much. We will see you on the next delivery of the J.E.D.I presentation. Thank you, and thank you again, Dr. Vivanco.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.